For a star to be born, a gaseous nebula must collapse. So collapse, crumble. This is not your destruction. This is your birth. Today, I will be sharing with you how I turned my tragedies into purpose, my fears into my greatest gift to others, and I will show you how I transformed my life so that I could do my part to transform the world. I lost my mom when I was 8 years old. It was Friday the 13th, ironically enough. I remember being told the moment that I had woken up that day. I was sleeping at my cousin's house. People had been telling me for months that she may not survive. I was 8 years old, watching her go to frequent doctor visits, watching her lose energy and slowly get worse, watching her hair come out until she was balding, and watching her as well as everyone else around me lose hope. But I never lost hope. And as a little girl, you have these interesting ways in which you try to understand a situation or even try to control it. So I was always in fight or flight response, and I was always trying to save her life, even when she stopped trying to save herself. The day that she died, my world crumbled. As the years went on, I felt like my family had fallen apart. My father fell into a depression, raising a family on his own, as well as doing household duties, and often locked himself in the room. My amazing sister, who had now taken on this huge role as being a role model for me, was often with friends, terrified of the responsibility. And my brother, who was just 3 years old at the time when my mom passed, was moved to live with my auntie in a completely different city. Losing my mother was like losing the most important person in my life, and it made me never want to get close to anybody ever again. Suppressing my feelings and feeling like I was in a broken home made me so angry. When I did well in school, nobody seemed to notice. I didn't have any close friends. I wasn't popular, so I felt very alone. And when I went to high school, I decided to start hanging around a different crowd. They were the cool crowd. I'm sure you guys have an idea of the cool crowd and what that means. This was the beginning journey of my downward spiral to becoming truant in high school, being a substance abuser, abusing drugs, getting arrested, and being violent with others. At the age of 21, I found myself getting pregnant. And there really was no question about it. I was going to get an abortion. The abortion happened just as quickly as the pregnancy did. If I didn't even value my own life, how could I possibly value another? And with all of that happening and a loss of friends and a shame on my own part, I resulted to one thing that would numb it all. I suppressed my feelings again, and I resulted to drugs. I felt like the worst person in the world. One day, I was sitting at this party. I didn't know anybody there, and I was taking basically any drug that was passed to me at the moment. And before I knew what was going on, I realized I was falling into a really dark hole. I didn't know if people were talking to me. I couldn't respond. I had no grasp of what was going on outside of me. And in that moment, when the distractions disappeared and the escape was gone, I could no longer run. The escape was gone. I was just sitting there by myself, and all the feelings and thoughts began to surface, all the thoughts that I had suppressed. And the first thought was, oh my God, these people are going to get rid of my body. Excuse me. They're going to throw my body behind a dumpster or leave it on the side of the road, and that would be it. And then the second thought that came to me was the loudest thought. And this thought was not about how other people thought of me, but how I felt about myself. I didn't think my life was worth living. I realized that because of this thought, it was creating all the chaos in my life. All that I was doing was self-destruction. So in that realization, I realized that while this was all a cry for help, no one was coming to save me, and I would have to save myself. So I decided to change my life. I decided to leave San Francisco and pursue an inner passion I had to study aviation and learn to fly a plane. So I packed all my bags and I moved to LA and I went back to school. And those were the years that I learned how to empower myself, how to learn again, how to practice discipline, and how to love myself. Learning to fly a plane and then finishing university to work in a male-dominated industry where I worked with jet engine consignments taught me that I was capable, I was intelligent, and I was useful to society. Most of all, it taught me that I could really accomplish anything that I set my mind to. Several years later into my career, I decided to go on a trip. I decided to go to India to volunteer at a girls' orphanage. What I didn't realize is that trip would completely change my life. Arriving to India opened my eyes to a world that I never even knew existed. The girls at the orphanage were so happy to see me. They showered me with love. As we were walking to the local shop outside of the orphanage, Manisha told me her story. So Manisha was a little girl when she lost both her mother and her father. Her and her little sister were forced into slavery. She then ran away, and for a year, she was begging in the streets. Another girl, Rupa. Rupa was sexually abused by her father her entire life. She was the oldest of 4 daughters. She suffered through 6 abortions. And she finally decided to run away and report her father when her father threatened to rape her younger sister. Sneha. Sneha was the youngest girl at the orphanage. So Sneha, when she arrived, she was dirty, she was bleeding, she was sick, she was malnourished because she had been living in the sewer her entire life. She was rough around the edges. She had no idea how to socialize with people. And she completely changed her life. I fell in love with those girls that day. They opened something from within me that I had not experienced for a really long time, and that was love for myself and other people. We cried, we shared stories, and I could see how they were no different from me, how they were very much my sisters on the other side of the world. And that began to shift my mindset. I began to see life from a different perspective. I wondered how these girls who had lost everything and were living in a third world country could still learn to love and to give with all their heart. And while I had lost my mother 20 years before, and I still felt like the world had taken something from me and owed me. This allowed me to finally mourn and cry over my mother and to let her go. I realized that we never really lose anything in life. We only gain from it. And that everything in life happens for a reason. And it is to help you, not to hurt you. With this understanding, it allowed me to step into my final stage of healing for my mother and into the next chapter of my life, which I will be sharing with you guys today. So as I was traveling and volunteering throughout Nepal, I met a man named Tej BK. And Tej had a school in the slum area. He asked me to come visit the children and volunteer. When I arrived to the school, I found out that it had been terribly destroyed by the earthquake, and the building was ready to collapse at any moment. He asked me to help him rebuild the school. I was terrified to say yes, but my heart told me to do so. In the last 5 years, we have served to rebuild the school, provide education, school materials, food, and necessities for the children. We have served to now bring clean water and electricity into the entire slum area in the efforts for community development. We have our first girl and first student in university, Rebecca. She is studying pharmaceutical studies so that she can provide solutions to all the illnesses in her community. Our school has grown from 30 students to 70 students. And our newest project, which I would love for you to come learn about at my booth over there, is our Women's Sustainability Project. We believe in empowering the people instead of enabling the people. So this project is all about empowering the woman in the community so that they can create jobs for themselves through entrepreneurship, which also provides a solution to the menstruation challenges in Nepal. Making an impact in the world is how I allow my mother to live on. The impact of her life and death is the driving force to me fighting poverty in this world. Her love lives on in every project, in every community, and every life that I touch and transform. And now with that understanding, I have the ability to be grateful for what I have instead of what is missing. And learning to change my story allowed me to go from failures in education to empowering through education, tragedy of losing my mother to purpose by making a difference in the world. So please stop by the booth when you can, learn more about our projects, and pick up your pin that says, "I am abundant." Thank you.